Hi, everybody. It's Matt from Discover College Soccer. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, whether that's on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I also wanted to let you know about the Discover College Soccer Study Table. This is our brand new online portal that is complete with a 14-part online course giving you all of the ins and outs of the college soccer recruiting process. There's also a wealth of resources such as checklists, templates. There's the spreadsheets that have every soccer program in the country, along with their coaches, their contact information, their social media information, some basic stats about the school, and more. Plus, there's an online community where you can ask your questions, share your wins, your losses, any questions that you may have around the college soccer recruiting process. It's all there at the Discover College Soccer study table that you can find at discovercollegesoccer.com/study table, and hopefully we will see you there. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Nathan Kogut from Lamar. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you for having me. Excited to
Yeah,
be here.
yeah. Thanks for being here. I think I caught a Lamar game on ESPN Plus at some point back in the fall. So it'll be great to talk to you and hear about the program. Um, we're talking here kind of end of February-ish. I know my daughter's got a big ECNL spring event in Lakewood Ranch coming up here in 2 weeks. So I'm assuming you're hot and heavy on the recruiting trail at all the various showcases. I'm sure you were in Dallas this past weekend.
Mhm.
Uh, Hopefully you didn't get too cold and wet.
Not wet. It was
It was just
definitely
cold.
cold. It
Okay.
was very cold.
Well, it was pouring down here in Florida. Um, so just give me an idea of your calendar. I mean, I'm assuming like, is your class of 24s completely done and you're on to 25s, and are you looking at 26s? Kind of what's your typical timeline for a recruiting class?
For Lamar, we're in a really unique spot because most of the Power Fives get their stuff done by middle of September. It feels like, they're spending a bunch of the fall really, really, really far in advance. And our sweet spot is identifying as many kids as we can early that are really good fits for us, but also those kids that are waiting for that Power Five offer that doesn't hit, unfortunately. We're that school that kind of comes in behind. And so for us right now, we also we heavily utilize the junior college ranks and the transfer portal. So class of 24, it really doesn't finish until the summer months, but I would say there's really only a spot or two left for freshmen, and we're about to start making I don't want to say mass offers like it's a bad thing. We've identified a really good set of 25s that we feel comfortable ready to visit, get into our culture, and make serious offers to. I try not to pull the trigger immediately until we've done some serious research. We've seen them a handful of times. And then with 26s, we've identified a few, but it's kind of like we're really not. We've got some kids that have reached out to us and they know that we can't contact, so we've been able to see them and put eyes on them, but we're really not moving in that direction until the summer. I think is when we feel pretty comfortable with it, which is obviously when everybody pivots that direction. But we're not working back channels or anything like that with 26s. We need to finish 24, make sure that when we do that, we now know exactly what we want in 25. And I guess you'd call it deliberate.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Well, you mentioned JUCO and transfer portal. It seems like there's a also a pivot these days to being more internationally focused, or uh, you know, uh, it's probably more heavy in the men's than the women's side, but the women's side seems like it's picking up, and it looks like you guys got a good handful of international players. So how important is that type of recruiting, and when do those kind of come along, and what's that look like?
Those are always getting sent to us, and I think it's just a balance point because it's how do you want to invest what scholarship aid you do have, and how do you want that to look. I I think it's a privilege to be a very high aid person right off the bat, um, and so we have to make sure we balance that. I'm going to be honest with you. I struggle identifying international players, and that is just because it's not my forte. I grew up obviously in Texas, but I I can recognize really good club kids, and it's probably a blind spot for me internationally. So I have a really good staff that is able to identify, work with the handlers and the agencies to figure out exactly what fits for us. It's something that I'm working to improve on. But in my mind, our good internationals that we brought in since I've been here have been junior college and transfers.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, well, what about you mentioned the 25s that you have right now? You've seen them a handful of times. I'm guessing that's both at events and maybe ID camps. How important are ID camps, whether they're your own or does your staff work others? How does that fit in?
We're very lucky that Challenge in Houston and Sting in Dallas and Sting in Austin and Solar and FC Dallas and Dallas Texans. All those guys run incredible club camps every summer, every December, every January, and we're able to get somebody up there every single time. And it allows us to kind of cultivate a larger list, and we can, stack it on top of an ECNL event or a GA event or things like that. But we've been very fortunate that, Albion was in December. They moved theirs from last month to December. Lone Star, the same thing. It just allows us to help grow the Lamar brand. We've been very good the last couple of years. We've been very intentional about trying to raise our, the name within the state of Texas, because we're in Southeast Texas. We're almost in Louisiana, and we're in a relatively big city. We're far away from everybody though. Hour outside of Houston, so even to get those kids, you got to ask them to get in a car. So we have found that we can be successful going somewhere else. And honestly, we don't have to go to another school's ID camp unless we get invited. We can just kind of piggyback on the big clubs, and that has allowed us to, when we run a couple ID camps, to get good numbers, and they are intentional numbers. We're not just blasting it out to everybody so that we're wasting somebody's time and money. That's somebody's best commodity, is their time and their money. And I don't like we don't need an ID camp of 80 kids. So we need to make sure we get the 30 or 40 at most. We get those kids, and we are able to talk to them, know their names. We knew them when they got here. There's only a handful of, we've never seen this player before, and I think that's really important for me.
Yeah, got it. Well, whether it's at a camp or an event or whatever, kind of what makes up that hierarchy of things that you're looking for in a player that says, okay, this is one we want here at Lamar.
Sometimes they just have that look. You leave Texas A&M, and these players all look. They look like that Texas A&M athlete, and we've had to recalibrate a little bit. But that look goes, that first impression when you walk on that field with your friends and stuff like that, that's a really big deal to me. Obviously, I don't make a decision off of that, but what do you look like when you walk out there? Or does it look like it's something you take serious? Because it sounds crazy, but this is my livelihood. This is how we put we keep our staff employed and or take care of our families. So we want you to take it as serious as we do. But the decision-making process is really important. What I call them superpowers. What's going to be your superpower? So some kids can hit the heck out of a ball with both feet, and that's an incredible superpower. And they may not be the most dynamic. So are they smart so that they can find the space so they can hit it with both feet? It's little intangibles like that. What's your decision making? What's your pace like? If you can get in behind, are you like a one-trick pony and it's a straight line? Can you hit it with both feet? If you're a defender, what does tackling look like? But we're really big on, when you win it, can we go somewhere? So can you complete that first pass? We took a couple kids in both of our recruiting classes that their superpowers are straight up, they tackle and they go somewhere. And we can work and develop a lot of those other things. So there's a pretty wide list just watching before we really get to know anybody.
Okay. Makes sense. Well, let's shift gears a little bit, talk more about the school. You mentioned Southeast Texas, but I'm sure there's some folks not familiar, right, with Lamar. So you've been there a couple years now. What are some of the things that you find are just awesome about the school? Maybe some things we don't even know just by going through the website.
So Lamar is about 50 miles east of Houston, straight along I-10. And I-10 runs, I mean, it runs before you get to Houston, but I-10 for us runs from Houston to Florida. And so you're going right across the Gulf Coast. And a lot of people don't realize that we are situated, I-10 splits Beaumont in half. And so Beaumont is built up around a major interstate, and so it's not a small town. It's not a major city, but it is a 200, 300, 400,000, depending on how far out you go, population center. So you do have an interstate system that runs through. You do have major highways that come off of it. You have, a half dozen major high schools out here. So it is a big area that may not be the quintessential college town until you get onto campus, but it's also not going to be like you're in downtown Houston where it's 13 million people and you're in traffic all the time. And that's been really beneficial to us of like, you just got to pop in a car and get here. And our big thing has been, there are a lot of Houston and Austin and San Antonio kids that get on I-10 and they leave Texas. And so we've made it a point to stop them from doing that. So we are the last major city before you get out. And that's a big deal. Beaumont is pretty special in that way. You are almost in Cajun country. There's an alligator farm, 10 miles west of here. But you're almost in the swamps. There's great seafood. I eat a little bit too much, but we're almost in Louisiana, so you get a little bit of that culture too. So Mardi Gras was a big deal a couple weeks ago. Not as big as like a New Orleans and a Mobile, but Mardi Gras is important because that culture is still here. But we tell our kids all the time, you are 45 to 50 minutes from anything you need to go do in Houston. So our kids will just pop over like it's a quick commute and come back. And it's one of those things that people just don't realize. And then I know I'm rambling, but for Lamar in general, what I did not realize growing up in this state was how good the engineering school is, how good the teaching department is, how good nursing is, and how good computer science is. And those are like our four really big sweet spots that not a lot of people realize. We're a very good engineering school. It's the number one, it's the highest salary out of graduation in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Nursing has a 98, almost 99% standardized testing to be certified as a nurse right off the bat. We are one of the top elementary education schools in the country, especially in the state for, I think that teaching is it is a very is an important, I'm trying to think of the right word here. It's an incredible job
It's the
that
noble profession.
but it is underappreciated. Sorry,
Yes,
underappreciated what I'm
yes.
thinking for. And right now there's too many of them, too many teachers leaving. And Lamar has a very good teacher education department. And those are all things that I did not know when I got here. And it's been, obviously we have kinesiology and psychology and all the sciences and stuff, but those were things that have set us apart with our peers. Of these majors are not only here, but we are very, very, very highly ranked in them.
No, that's great. Well, you mentioned academics, and obviously it's a student athlete experience, right? That you're there for your time. So how do your student athletes specifically really balance the rigors of those academic programs you mentioned and their sports commitments, and kind of what support systems does the school have to make sure that the kids are successful?
Full disclosure, we were so bad our first year. I got hired in April and I had 1 week of spring training with everybody. And then we had 14 kids on the roster. And then I was able to get the staff hired. And we basically spent like a 6 week sprint in the summer to bring people in. So the first time you get all of these kids together is August 1st. And for our first year, our first game was 3 days after everybody else. So everybody else has been in preseason for 3 days, and we're not even allowed to have meetings until 2 days after that. Then we get to meet everybody, and we are trying to run two tracks at the same time of we have a good roster, we need to win, we need to develop and get these standards taken care of. And sometimes they ran parallel, and there are other times it ran perpendicular. And it was like drinking water through a fire hose for a very long time. And we, as a program, were not good enough at a few things. We were very good on the soccer field. We were at a 3.1 GPA for the fall semester. And so we tried to split it between all of the staff, and I just took it over. So we have multiple academic advisors. There is like a 3-step process before you get registered. You have your own advisor, you have the athletic advisor, and then you have our academic success coordinator. All of those have to be on the same page for everything. And so we got within our program those pieces aligned because those were tools that we didn't utilize the right way. So we have those. We have the Teamworks app, which is something that I was able to utilize at a couple other stops that for me organizes my entire day. And once our kids got used to utilizing that, they now can input study hall into their calendar. I can see their calendar. Now everybody's on the same page. We have multiple study hall rooms within athletic facilities. There's one in our main athletic facility. There's one in our secondary athletic facility that's on the main part of campus. We turned our locker room. There's desks in our locker room. We've turned our extra office space into study hall areas. So if people just need to get away, because I was never someone who could study in my room, you give them some space there. Some people like to utilize the locker room. We made that go hand in hand with, if you're going to study in there, there's a pretty good chance when you're done, you'll put your boots on and go get some extra work. We got it bumped up to a 3.6 within a semester. And so now we've started to bring in the research center, the tutoring service in the library, the reading and writing center that's in a couple buildings. And now we're able to fully ingrain that into our group. And then the final piece is because we mix freshmen and transfers in, we have a group that has never been on a college campus before. We have a group that's been on a college campus before, but not Lamar. Our administration has a 4-week course that's like onboarding, where every couple of days there's another guest speaker that shows you this is what you need at Lamar. This is how you utilize it. By the time they get to the end of the summer before preseason, our kids know everybody that is going to impact their schooling, and they're ready to roll. And so we were able to get that. We did not do well last fall. Fall of 23, we're at a 3.6 again. So I think we figured it out of exactly what works for us, and it's helped tremendously.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, it sounds like, students are obviously busy with studying everything. Let's rewind maybe to October. You're in the heart of the conference season. Walk me through what's a typical week look like for a player in terms of, when is training, when are classes, meals, what's your game cadence and travel situation look like? What can one player expect as they come in?
So typically in the Southland, we're Friday, Sunday games. We've had discussions about going Thursday, Sunday, or rotating 2 games, going 2-1, 2-1, 2-1 within the game rhythm. And the reason I would love to do that is I can tailor my weeks to make sure that training is fully development versus we're just flying by the seat of our pants and making sure we're prepared for the very next game. Monday is going to always be an off day if we have a Sunday game. If we play Friday or Saturday, Monday is probably a training day. Tuesday morning is our lift. It's a maintenance lift. It's going to be 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, making sure that we're just staying healthy. We don't lose some of the gains that we made over the spring and summer. It's not heavy strength focused. It's a lot of power and a lot of injury prevention. We train at 4 o'clock. If that's the way, if our week is Friday, Sunday, then we train Tuesday through Thursday at 4. Tuesday is going to be a little bit lighter technical day. Keep one eye on the previous weekend and maybe one eye on what's coming. Wednesday is going to be our competitive day. It's the day that our kids get really amped up for because it's 2 days before match day. Um, it's going to be about 45 minutes geared towards what we need to know, and 45 minutes to an hour of competitive. And so it's always to goal. We usually let them draft their own teams and do some form of small sided stuff. And then we chart everything: goals, assists, shots, saves, wins. There's a little bit of fitness component to it. It gets really, really competitive. And we just make sure we walk them up to that line, but we don't let them cross that line. And then Thursday is our scout day. Thursday's our walkthrough day. We do a lot of 10v8 on Thursday with the focus on the 8. We don't give up a ton of goals from the run of play. So we make sure that we take care of those little details while we're numbers down. And every once in a while, we will leave on a Thursday afternoon, or we'll train Thursday morning and leave Thursday at lunch. And then Friday's a game day. Game day is going to be a relatively early wake up, allow you to get a little nap in, allow you to get some study hall. Since we'll probably play on Friday night, we have a midday shakeout. Depends on where we are. We'll walk around, we'll get them outside a little bit, and then we kind of shut them down for the afternoon. And then Saturday, if it's a travel day, it's a travel day. It's a scout day. And then Sunday, we've played half our games at 1 and then half our games in the evening. So it kind of just depends. But everything we do is making sure that we are peaking at the end of the week, and that by the time we get to November, we have a full roster. So we've done a very good job our 2 years of that.
Yeah, I mean, congrats on all your success this past fall, making it to the tournament. That's awesome, and winning your conference. Let's talk a little bit more about that soccer side, right? Well, we talked about recruiting and whatnot earlier, but is there a roster size that you find is ideal that you're trying to get to around each year?
We don't have a requirement. We're one of the few schools that we don't have a head in beds requirement, which is incredibly nice. As someone who's worked at schools that had that, it's I hate it. So I'm really glad that we don't. Um, our sweet spot's been like 28 to 32. Any less, and you always have that 1 week of sickness and 1 week of injuries, and you can't go big, or you're running into some issues there. And any more than 32 for longer than a season is just brutal. So we were at 30 and 31 our 2 years, and we've been able to absorb an injury or poor form or something like that. It's allowed us to have a if we do have a travel roster, we're not leaving half the group at home. So it's not a bunch of angry people. It's usually the people who understand, and they've been the ones who are redshirting, or we've talked to numerous times. It's not a shock when we get to that point. We've had 2 relatively big freshman classes, and I don't think we're going to have that anymore, which kind of allows a better managing of that overall roster number starting in this coming fall.
Okay. Well, besides the roster of players, you've got a staff roster, right? So talk to me about your staff, not only the on the team side, but are there other support staff within the athletic department that kind of help out with the team, and what's everybody's role there?
We had a 4-person staff the first 2 years. Our GA had a baby. She graduated. We are hiring a third full-time assistant. We just haven't done that piece yet, but she moved back to be closer to family. So we're back to a tripod right now. I was able to hire 2 former head coaches. Kurt Albrecht was my boss at the Division III level way back when, but he was a D3 head coach for almost a decade. And he was a sitting head coach on the men's side when I hired him 2 years ago. And then Colton Bryant is our recruiting coordinator. He started a junior college program in Tennessee, and then I was able to hire him from Jackson State. So actually, both of them came from Jackson, Mississippi, and never met each other, which was not planned. And I think that we've got a pretty good balance. That third full-time assistant is going to be heavy analytics and heavy goalkeeping, most likely, with obviously recruiting mixed in. But it's a pretty good balance of new and old. Kurt is a little bit older than me. He's he sits next to me on the sideline. He's the guy that has seen, I feel like he's seen almost everything. So I really valued the head coaching piece because I knew I was going to be learning. Even though I'm moving 18 inches over, there's still a ton of decisions that now you make. So I've coached a ton of club games, and I never get nervous with having to coach a game. There's this one decision that you've got to make in every single game or in the lead up to every single game, and everybody turns and looks at you. And having someone who has done it for the past decade just be over it, sometimes it's just to crack a joke because we've known each other for a while, but that feedback has been massive for me. And then Colton was the same way. As someone who built a program as young as when he did as young as he did, he got a different side of it and a different experience, and that's been really important as I've been learning. But those two, we split training, we split recruiting duties, we try to make it as even as possible. They take a ton off of my plate. They forced me to learn how to delegate a little bit because I still have the assistant mentality of it has to get done, so someone's got to do it, and I can do it. But we mix and match what we're really good at, and what someone else might struggle with. But that is just the coaching staff. We have an athletic trainer. We are hiring another athletic trainer at some point this summer. So we will have a graduate assistant and a full-time, which is massive to me. We've been healthy the last couple seasons, and that's a distinct advantage for why we're so good. We have a full-time strength coach that we empowered when he was a GA. He loves us, and he's full-time now. And so we get him. We were having programs within the university ask us how we got our guy to do so much with us. How did Miles come to everything? How did we get Miles to be around? And well, we asked him and we told him, and we've worked around him. And so we have that piece. And then we have a full-time nutritionist. We have obviously all of our academic advisors that work and put hands on. But in terms of this is exactly who touches our group, it's that. So our staff meetings are 5 or 6 people deep. So everybody's got an important piece with that.
Great. Well, now I gotta make you do some self-reflection here, though. So now you got to tell me, talk about your coaching style, the culture of the team you're trying to implement. What's it like to have you as the head gaffer?
It was really tough moving that one chair over from being an assistant for so long because your relationship with the players changes, whether you want to admit it or not. It always does. You now become the guy that controls playing time. And that was a huge adjustment for me because I love the recruiting process. I love this age group. College, I grew up so much during this 18 to 24 that I love this time frame. And so that was where I really struggled, and I've had to change the way that I connect to where I've really leaned into the transformational piece to try to remove that transactional piece of it, where people think if they come in and talk to me, then that's going to lead to something. And it's more along the lines of we just need to have that relationship to where you can get some tough love or you can get loved up on. In either way, it's going to work and it's not going to change our relationship. And that's been really important to me. I don't want to get to the end of the semester and we have a meeting and I'm asking you about your grades and your life and your family. I try to get that piece out pretty consistently. There are times where it's a blind spot and we get wrapped up in everything, but that happens everywhere. But being very intentional about that is important. The other side that I think that I try to bring, and it's one of our core values, is gratitude. You're not going to find very many head coaches that are more grateful to be where they are and working with who they work for and work with and who they get to coach than I feel like I am. I don't like to say I a lot when I talk about Lamar. We have a very good staff. I just get to be the guy that's the steward of the program and I get to be in charge of it. But everybody has a good relationship. We're friends. And that, I think that filters down to our players. So training is fun. We obviously have a really high standard, and I am very demanding, but I'm not demeaning. You are going to know where you stand, but if you don't do something right, it's not going to be the end of the world. Like, we try to make sure that you already carry a ton of weight as a college kid, and you feel like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders. My job is to remove that, and soccer is the fun part. So sometimes it works and they listen, and other times it doesn't. But um, honestly, I try to make it so everybody knows that I have the best job in the world. I get paid to coach a sport with kids that are going through a massive change in their life that they don't realize it for another decade. And it's the best time of their life. And it's my job to make sure that they appreciate that. So, in terms of what we do, training tries to be, I try to make it fun. We try to have a direction on everything. We try to have a scoreboard. I want there to be a winner and a loser. I want them to be able to reflect afterwards on what their training was like without being so self-critical that they collapse on themselves. Um, but we are very good, and so the standard gets higher and higher every year. And that is a new challenge that we get of, how do you do it again? You've already done it twice. Now you got to do it again, and still make sure these kids understand that this is a totally new team every year. They're not the 22 and 23 team. So the pressure isn't there. And that's kind of my job.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, you've been generous with your time. Really appreciate all this insight. I do have one last question for you, and that's, if you had one piece of advice or any nugget of information for any families going through this college recruiting process, what would you want them to know?
I want them to know that it is on your timeline. Deadlines, deadlines spur action, which is why a lot of schools give them when they finally make an offer. You will know if it's where you're supposed to be. You're looking for, don't chase the logo, don't chase the division. All of that stuff doesn't matter. It is all about fit. We tell kids we have a nice facility. It is not LED lights and silver lockers and all this stuff. A nice locker room is not going to get you up at it for 8 a.m. class or a 6 a.m. workout. It's going to be that you love what you're doing, and it's going to be you love who you're doing it with. And so you're going to, when you get to those visits and you start to go through that process, if you can do that and you can really sit down and self-reflect, the deadlines won't matter. You're going to know when you know, and you can have a great experience at the JUCO level and parlay that into Division 1, 2, 3, or NAIA. You can start at one. You can, any of those. It does not matter. But my thing is, the 8 a.m. class, you're not getting up because your locker room is the coolest thing you've ever seen. You've got recliners in the locker room. You're getting up because you love where you are and you love what you're doing it with. And if you find that school, latch onto that thing fast.
Love it. Well, Coach, really appreciate your time. Congrats again on all your success, and hopefully you'll continue to parlay that in the next season. And if you do get down to any recruiting events down here and then Bradenton Lakewood Ranch, give me a shout. We'll get together. All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.